Administration Committee to the House.
Question is the motion be agreed to.
Mr Speaker.
Andrew Bailey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And it is a pleasure to be talking on the Residential Tenancy Amendment Bill number 2. And it's good that we seem to be heading in the same direction on this bill. Essentially, large amount of this work was undertaken by the Honourable Nick Smith in bringing this bill to the House, as the Minister just noted, back in April 2017. And I'd also like to commend the work of the Governance and Administration Committee for the amendments they have made, which have sought to improve it and clarify elements of this bill. And this bill is about striking a balance between protecting the rights of landlords and also the position of tenants. And therefore, it's interesting because in some occasions it strengthens the rights of landlords, but on the other side it strengthens the rights of tenants. And that is the right thing we should be doing, making sure that we do get that right balance. So it has three parts, as has been noted: liability for damage to rental properties caused by a tenant, the issue of unlawful use of residential properties, and the third one is around the contamination of properties. And I really want to just talk to the first and the third element of what the bill strikes at. The first one is around the liability, and of course what this has done and what the committee has done is to make sure that in terms of the landlord's obligation is to make sure if they have insurance on a property that they're tenanting, that insurance information is made aware to the tenant. And that is an important disclosure in terms of trying to assess from the perspective of the tenant what his or her potential liability may be if damage is caused. And of course there's an issue of who caused that damage, if it was caused by the tenant or someone they have responsibility to. And I think being clear about the element of who causes the damage is important, but also the extent of the liability of the tenant in that situation. And as we've heard, it's limited to the lower of the excess or 4 weeks' worth of rent. The other one, I think, is the issue around when damage has occurred, how do you actually prove who's done it? And the bill seeks to address this through an amendment in subsection 7 and under proposed section 49B, and to clarify those provisions as to who should be incurring the loss. The second bit of this bill is about methamphetamine contamination, or now referred to as contaminated properties. And this part of the bill was largely driven by a private member's bill in my name that matters around methamphetamine contamination of rental properties and the issue that real estate agents were having in dealing with that. And there was a strong recognition some years ago that the industry needed to be further regulated. And so the work that was commissioned a couple of years ago that looked at three things. First of all, what was the required or threshold at which contamination was deemed to be of significant scale that would affect the health of New Zealanders. The second bit of the work that the committee did was looking at how do you standardise the testing regime. Because if you apply a different approach to the testing of houses, you would come up with a different result. And so the need to standardise the testing regime was an important second element of the work. The third bit was to look at, if you have remediated a house, how do you know that it's been remediated? And the committee was also asked to address that particular issue so that we could have conformity amongst all the various testing companies. And that extensive piece of work now helps in terms of making sure that we've got a much more professionally operated sector that tenants and landlords can rely on, and that has gone a long way, and hopefully many of those recommendations will be picked up in the regulation component part of this bill. The issue around the level of contamination is obviously a contentious one, but that is something that will be set by regulation. And I think where we've ended up it is a much better outcome to protect the safety of New Zealanders when they're living in their homes and for landlords who have a big investment in those properties. Thank you very much.
Jamie Strange.
Mr Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to talk.